Hi, it's me. Everyone will have heard by now just how busy Sony have been recently designing ultra-wide-angle lenses for their mirrorless cameras with APS-C sized sensors. Here's another one of them for you. Exhibit A for your consideration is the Sony E 10-20mm f4PZ or Power Zoom G lens. When it comes out, its price will be $750, a bit steep for an APS-C lens, so let's hope it's good. By the way, here's how it performs when mounted onto a full-frame Sony E-mount camera. Lots of people tell me they'd like to know about this. While this lens could be an attractive proposition for all kinds of photographers, it is obviously intended primarily for video shooters and vloggers for all kinds of reasons. Its power zoom mechanism can work remotely with some electronic gimbals and other devices, and its internal zoom mechanism means you won't have to rebalance your electronic gimbal as you change focal length. Also, as you can see here, the lens displays very little focus breathing, whether you're zoomed in or zoomed out. And finally, that ultra-wide to moderately wide-angle zoom range really lends itself well to dramatic video work and vlogging, even if the lens's maximum aperture of f4 is unimpressive. This could be an absolutely brilliant lens for travel, video work and photography. Oh, and it accepts front filters too, which is pretty vital in my opinion for video and landscape shooting, and not to be taken for granted on an ultra-wide-angle lens. I'd like to thank Sony UK for loaning me this lens for a week or so for evaluation, although as usual this is a totally independent review. As you can see here, the lens is compact and very nicely designed with lots of handy controls being squeezed into its body. It's made of plastic but feels quite solidly built, and there's also a weather sealing gasket around the metallic lens mount. The lens weighs only 175 grams, less than half a pound, which is seriously impressive. It won't be weighing you down in any way at all. You get a number of focus control buttons here, an auto manual focus switch, and the increasingly ubiquitous focus hold button. The lens's power zoom is operated with a rocker on a side or a very nicely responsive and smooth turning zoom ring. Using the zoom rocker, there are 3 speeds: a slow zoom, as you can see here, a medium speed, and a fast speed. That is as fast as you can get with the zoom rocker. Grab hold of the zoom ring and you can almost crash zoom in and out, as you can see. I found the power zoom mechanism worked really naturally for me, and it doesn't seem to make any noise as it goes. The autofocus motor works quickly, silently, smoothly and accurately. Absolutely no problems here at all, whether you're shooting in AFS or in autofocus continuous mode. The lens comes with a little plastic hood which is reverse mountable. The front filter size is 62mm wide. Something else I should mention is that this lens does not have its own image stabilization, a risky decision from Sony, but on an ultra-wide-angle lens it's not the most important thing, and Sony's camera bodies increasingly have stabilization built into them. Overall, this thing's build quality is super likeable. It's actually very fun to use, and its video features are well thought out. It's also super lightweight, giving it appeal for landscape and travel photographers too. Alright, let's take a look at image quality. I'm testing it here on a Sony A5100 with its 24MP APS-C sized sensor. In-camera corrections are turned on. At the widest angle of 10mm and the brightest aperture of f4, image quality is brilliant in the middle, razor sharp with excellent contrast. Over in the corners, image quality is just good. Sharpness takes a little bit of a hit and contrast is a little lower, but we're still seeing a good amount of detail really. I'm being a bit fussy here, to be honest. At f5.6 we see just a touch more contrast and sharpness. The lens stays this sharp down to f11, where softness from the effects of diffraction begin to emerge. So the lens is very sharp at 10mm, although the corners aren't quite razor sharp. Let's zoom into 20mm now. In the middle of the image, picture quality is very good at f4, although it is possible to get just a little sharper than this. Over in the corners, well, they look great actually, sharper than they did at 10mm. Stop down to f5.6 or f8 for a little extra brightness and contrast in those corners, which now look even better than ever. Overall, this is an impressively sharp lens through and through. Its image corners at the widest angles could be just a little sharper, but its performance is clearly more than good enough for still photography or for video work. Let's see about this lens's vignetting and distortion. The camera doesn't allow you to turn off distortion correction, which is always a bit of a red flag to me. Let's take some pictures in RAW and see what we are dealing with. Ouch! At 10mm we're seeing quite a hidden distortion issue here. To be fair though, it's a common approach for manufacturers nowadays to sacrifice optically correcting distortion, either to keep down a lens's size or weight. When it comes to vignetting, it's obviously strong at f4. Stop down to f5.6 or f8 for those corners to brighten up just a little. Zoom into 16mm and that distortion mostly straightens out, although vignetting is still surprisingly strong. Zoom all the way into 20mm and we see fairly strong pincushion distortion now. Those corners still look really dark at f4. At f5.6 or f8 they brighten a little but never fully improve. So, in conclusion, you will 100% want to keep your in-camera corrections on with this lens all the time. There will be huge problems if you don't. Okay, let's move on and look at close-up image quality. Whether you're zoomed in or out, this lens lets you get very close to your subject. But I reckon you'll get best results when zoomed into 20mm, where, if you focus manually, you can get down to 17cm. At f4, close-up image is softer but still quite acceptable. You only need to stop down to f5.6 for a huge improvement in close-up sharpness though. Alright, let's see how the lens works against bright light. Whether you're zoomed in or zoomed out here, flaring remains low, contrast high. No serious issues, and that is important on an ultra-wide angle lens. And while we're working in the dark, let's take a look at chroma smearing. With a maximum aperture of only f4, this will not be anyone's first choice for astrophotography, but still you might want to shoot with it in the dark. Fortunately, even at that brightest aperture of f4, chroma smearing is essentially non-existent. Let's zoom out a bit and look for sunstars now. Stop down to f11 and they begin to emerge. At f16 and f22 they do begin to look pretty strong. And finally, let's take a look at the quality of this lens's bokeh. It'll be a sad, dystopian world when an ultra-wide angle lens for APS-C cameras with a maximum aperture of only f4 is confused with a portrait lens. Still, get close to your subject and some slightly out of focus backgrounds will emerge which look just averagely soft. Overall, well, while it's pretty obvious that this is a lens primarily designed for video work, well, optically, its only serious slip-up comes in its uncorrected distortion and vignetting, which you'll have to sort out when shooting in RAW. Everything else about the lens's image quality looks pretty fantastic. There is plenty of sharpness and contrast to be found overall, even if you're just doing stills work. It's also an incredibly lightweight and mobile lens, easy to carry around with you anywhere you go, and especially friendly to users of electronic gimbals. Its price of $750 is very high for an APS-C lens, especially one with only an average maximum aperture, but I can still see all kinds of shooters joining the queue to get one of these. Still shooters and video makers who want a bit of versatility will definitely still get their money's worth out of this thing, so it does come recommended. Oh, you're still here. I'll let you in on a secret. I love putting these lens reviews together for you all. Not only is it fun, but I know it's useful to know how the latest optics are performing. If you find these reviews helpful and you'd like to support the channel, then check out my Patreon page down in the description below. Supporters receive all kinds of free, exclusive content that I make just for them, and it'll no doubt make you feel warm and fuzzy inside to be so generous. Thanks to everyone who's already supporting and making a huge difference, and ciao for now.